Hi children, welcome back to social science class. In the last class, we learned about atmosphere, the composition of atmosphere and the different layers of atmosphere. Air is present all around us. Our earth is surrounded by a thick blanket of air called atmosphere. It is a composition of various gases such as nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc. Which are the two gases that make up the bulk of the atmosphere? Yes, it is nitrogen and oxygen. 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. The remaining 1% make the other gases such as carbon dioxide, helium, etc. And also we studied the importance of ozone layer. And the different layers of the atmosphere such as troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere and exosphere. I hope all of you read the textbook well. Today we are going to learn the remaining part of this lesson, temperature and air pressure. Let's learn more about it. Weather and climate. We learned in class 5 about what is the difference between weather and climate. Nowadays, sometimes you observe the sky and you find the differences in weather. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, it is a pleasant day or a sunny day. Immediately, it will become cloudy and sometimes rains. Weather means the condition of the atmosphere for a short period of time. It will change at any time. We cannot predict the weather. So it is the condition of atmosphere. Sometimes hour to hour or day to day the weather can changes continuously. So we cannot predict the weather. Climate is the average weather condition of a particular place for a long period of time. We learned about the different climatic regions of the world. The torrid zone, the temperate zone and the frigid zone. We came to the conclusion of a particular place climate from the long period of experiences. For a long period, what type of weather they experiences. We take an average of that weather conditions and that is the climate of that particular area. Clear children, what's the difference between weather and climate? Let's learn more about weather and climate. Weather. Weather is the hour-to-hour, day-to-day condition of the atmosphere. Weather can change dramatically from day to day. We cannot predict it. We have weather forecasters. Sometimes you will listen to the radio or television about the weather forecast, about the temperature and the weather forecast. But we cannot predict it. It will change dramatically. It will change from day to day. We are trying to say the weather forecasters, but we cannot clearly or we cannot make it sure because it is the hour to hour or day to day condition of the atmosphere. Then what is climate? The average weather condition of a place for a longer period of time represent the climate of a place. We are taking the average condition for a particular place for a longer period of time. It represents the climate of a place. So some areas where polar regions always cold climate because they are experiencing most of the year they are experiencing that type of climate, that type of weather condition. So we are saying that they have cold climate. Equatorial region, hot climate because they for a long period of time they experiences that type of weather conditions. They are atmospheric conditions because they are receiving more heat and light from the sun. Equatorial region. So next we are going to study about the temperature of a particular place. What do you mean by temperature? The degree of hotness and coldness of the air is known as temperature. An important factor that influences the distribution of temperature is insolation. So what do you mean by temperature? The degree of hotness and coldness of the air is known as temperature. Sometimes a hot weather condition that make the temperature hot, or the cold weather condition that make the temperature cold. An important factor that influences the temperature is the insolation. What do you mean by insolation? That is the incoming solar energy intercepted by the earth. We learned in the first session of this lesson about the incoming solar energy that immediately reflect back to the atmosphere, and some of the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, ozone, etc. that they intercepted or they capture some amount of heat on the earth's surface. That is why we can able to maintain a minimum amount of heatness or temperature on the earth's surface. If the amount of the carbon dioxide is increased, what will happen? That also we learned in the last session. Global warming. Anyway, this intercepted energy is known as insolation. So the amount of insolation is different in different areas on the earth's surface. Can you say where the insolation is more? Yes, it is on the equatorial region. The amount of insolation is more on the equator, and when we are moving towards the poles, the amount of insolation decreases. We know only on the polar regions they are only getting the slanting rays from the sun. So the amount of insolation is different in different areas of the earth's surface. The amount of insolation is more at equatorial region and it will decrease towards the poles. Therefore, the temperature decreases in the same manner. Now, do you understand why poles are covered with snow? Because they are not getting enough temperature, or they are always cold. So, the polar region is always covered with the snow. If the Earth's temperature rises too high, it would become too warm for some crops to grow. And also, temperature in cities are more than in villages. Why? The concrete and metals in buildings and the asphalt of roads gets heated up during the day. Because of this reason, the temperature in cities are more than in villages. You can see from this picture, most of the buildings in the cities are concrete buildings. And the metals in buildings used for making this building, the metals used for making these buildings, and the asphalt of the roads. For construction of roads, we are using some metals, some asphalt. This all heated up during the day, and this heat is released during the night. Also, the crowded high-rise buildings of the cities trap the warm air and thus raise the temperature of the cities. These all reasons that led to the high temperature in city, experience high temperature in cities than in the villages. So, what is the degree or the standard unit of measuring temperature? Yes, you know, temperature is measuring on degrees Celsius. It was invented by Anders Celsius. On the Celsius scale, the water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and boils at 100 degrees Celsius. That's all you learned. Now, you can see some of the instruments used for measuring temperature, measuring atmospheric pressure, measuring the amount of rainfall and the direction of the wind. The first picture is showing thermometer. It is used for measuring the temperature. Then the second one is barometer. It measures the atmospheric pressure. And this is the picture of the rain gauge. It is used for measures the amount of rainfall. And the last picture is showing wind vane. Shows the direction of the wind. These are some of the instruments used for measuring temperature, atmospheric pressure, direction of the wind, etc. Clear, children? pressure. You will be surprised to know that air above us presses us with a great force on our bodies. That is known as air pressure. But why don't you feel this air pressure? Because the air presses us from all directions. Not only from one direction, the air is pressing us from all directions. And also our body exerts a counter pressure on it. So we cannot feel the air pressure. Actually, air pressure is the air is pressing us or pressing our body from air pressure is on the earth's surface and also on our body, but it presses on all directions. And also at the same time, our body exerts a counter pressure on it. So it will be balanced. Air pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of air on the earth's surface. So what is meant by air pressure? It is defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of air on the earth's surface. As we go up the layers of the atmosphere, the pressure falls rapidly. That means, where is the higher pressure is the highest? The air pressure is highest at the sea level and decreases with the height. So air pressure is less on the mountainous region. That is why the mountaineers are using oxygen cylinders when they are moving up, and when the air pressure is highest at the sea level and decreases with the height. On the moon there is no air and hence no air pressure. We know that on the moon there is no air, hence there is no air pressure. Then why do you understood why these astronauts are wearing a special protective spacesuits filled with air when they go to the moon? If they did not wear these spacesuits, the counter pressure exerted by the body of the astronauts would make the blood vessels burst. So that will lead to the astronauts would bleed. So if there is no air, that means there is no air pressure on the moon. So when they reached on the space, the astronauts, they are carrying oxygen cylinders because there is no air pressure on the moon, but the counter pressure exerted by the body. Our body were exerting a counter pressure, but there is no air pressure on the moon. That will lead to the body of the astronauts would make the blood vessels burst because of the counter pressure from our body. So that is why they are wearing a special space suit when they are going to the space. Wind. The air always moves from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. The movement of air from high pressure area to low pressure areas is called wind. Sometimes the wind is very strong and we call it a storm. The gentle wind is called a breeze. You can see wind at work as it blows dry leaves down the pavement or uproots trees during a storm. Sometimes when the wind blows gently, you can see it blowing away smoke or fine dust. At times, wind can be so strong that it is difficult to walk against it. You must have experienced it is not easy to hold an umbrella on a windy day. Winds can be broadly divided into three types. First one, permanent winds. These winds blow constantly throughout the year in a particular direction. For example, trade winds. They are blowing constantly throughout the year in a particular direction. Westerlies and easterlies are also an example of permanent winds. B. Seasonal winds. These winds change their direction in different seasons. For example, monsoons in India. They change their direction in different seasons according to the seasons. And the third category is local wind. These blow only during a particular period of the day or a year in a small area. For example, land and sea breeze. They are blowing only during a particular period of the day or year in a small area. The dry wind, you studied in our classes about the dry local wind of northern plains of India, Lu. It is also an example of local wind. Major pressure belts and wind system. A wind is named after the direction from which it blows. Example, the wind blowing from the west is called westerlies, east is called easterlies. Wind always move from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. You can see here major pressure belts in the world. Subpolar low pressure area, subtropical high pressure zone and equatorial low pressure zone, subtropical high pressure zone, subpolar low pressure zone. You can see from the arrow mark, the wind is always moving from high pressure areas to the low pressure areas. Clear? Humidity. What do you mean by humidity that you learned earlier in the lower class? Humidity is the amount of moisture or water vapor present in the air. When the water vapor rises, it starts cooling. The water vapor condenses, causing formation of droplets of water. Clouds are just masses of such water droplets. When these droplets of water become too heavy to float in air, then they come down as precipitation. Precipitation in the liquid form is called a rain. Different forms of precipitations, they are snow, sleet, hail, etc. Precipitation in the liquid form is called a rain. So moisture, the humidity is the moisture or the water vapor present in the air. When the air is full of water vapor, we call it as humid day. On a humid day, the clothes take longer time to dry and sweat from our body does not evaporate easily. When the water vapor rises, it starts cooling and the water vapor condenses, causing formation of droplets of water. The clouds are just masses of such water droplets. When these droplets of water become too heavy to float in the air, then they comes down as precipitation. Sometimes you notice jet planes flying in the sky leaves a white trail behind them. The moisture from their engines condenses. We see trails on this condensed moisture for some time when there is no air movement to disturb it. Rain. Precipitation that comes down to the earth in liquid form is called rain. Most of the groundwater comes from rainwater. Plants help preserve water. When trees on hillsides are cut, rainwater flows down the bare mountains and can cause flooding of low-lying areas. On the basis of mechanism, there are 3 types of rainfall. You only want to study the names of the different types of rainfall. In detail, you will study in higher classes. Just you want to name them. Which are the 3 types of rainfall? Cyclonic rainfall. This is the first type of rainfall. When the warm air rises, it cools and forms clouds and comes down in the form of rain. And the relief or orographic rainfall is the second type of rainfall. It is formed because of the mountain's features or relief features such as mountain. And the last one is convectional rainfall. The same, the warm air rises and cools down. These are the 3 different types of rainfall. Once more I will say cyclonic rainfall, relief or orographic rainfall and the convectional rainfall. With that, this lesson is came to an end. So just recall what we learned by listening to a small video. In this session, we learned about weather and climate. What's the difference between weather and climate? And about temperature, insolation, and about air pressure, wind, and rain. Now let's recall by listening to a small video.
Do you know why the astronauts going to moon have to wear a special suit? At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define weather and climate, explain air pressure, describe the pressure belts and wind belts on the Earth's surface, name and describe various types of rainfall. Is it going to rain today? No, it will be bright and sunny today. The sky is clear. It should not rain today, but it is very hot. It may rain by evening. What are they talking about? They are talking about the hour-to-hour and day-to-day condition of the atmosphere, which can be termed as weather. Weather can change dramatically within few hours. Let us look at another aspect. We never experience snowfall in Chennai. We never experience a high rainfall in Rajasthan desert. Why do you think it is so? We have a pattern of weather condition for a particular area that is more or less the same all the years. The elements of weather, temperature, air pressure, humidity, rainfall, wind speed varies place to place. The average weather condition of a place for a longer period of time represents the climate of a place. A hot or humid weather may make one irritable. On the other hand, a pleasant, breezy weather may make one cheerful and even plan for an outing. The degree of hotness and coldness of air is known as temperature. The temperature of the atmosphere changes not only between day and night, but also changes from season to season. What do you think is the major factor that influences the temperature of an area? An important factor that influences the distribution of temperature is incoming solar energy intercepted by the Earth, which is known as insolation. You already learnt that the amount of insolation decreases from the equator towards the poles. Thus, the temperature decreases in the same manner. This is the reason why poles are covered with snow. Temperature in cities is much higher than that of villages. Why do we experience such differences? The crowded high-rise buildings of the cities trap the warm air and thus rise the temperature of the cities. Even the concrete and metals in buildings and asphalt of roads get heated up during the day, and this heat is released during the night. On the other hand, presence of greenery and absence of concrete roads and buildings make villages much more pleasant than cities. The standard unit of measuring temperature is degree Celsius, which was invented by Andreas Celsius. On the Celsius scale, the water freezes at 0 degrees centigrade and boils at 100 degrees centigrade. What do you see in common in these examples? In all the situations, we are using air that is exerting a pressure. Even air above us presses us with a great force on our bodies. Why don't we get crushed under air pressure? We don't even feel the air pressure as the air presses us from all directions and our body exerts a counter pressure. Thus, air pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of air on the Earth's surface. The air pressure is highest at sea level and decreases with height. As we move up to the upper layers of atmosphere, the pressure falls rapidly. Do you know why do the astronauts going to moon have to wear a special suit? On the moon, there is no air and hence no air pressure. Thus, the astronauts have to wear special protective spacesuits filled with air when they go to moon. Horizontally, the distribution of air pressure is influenced by temperature of air at a given place. In areas where temperature is high, the air gets heated and rises. This creates a low-pressure area. Low pressure is associated with cloudy skies and wet weather. In areas having low temperature, the air is cold and heavy. Thus, heavy air sinks and creates a high-pressure area. Can you predict the prevailing weather condition during high pressure? High pressure is associated with clear and sunny skies. Let us have a look at the globe to know the general pattern of pressure on Earth's surface. The air always moves from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. The movement of air from high pressure area to low pressure area is called wind. We can experience wind at work as it blows dry leaves down the pavement or uproots trees during a storm. At times, wind can be so strong that it is difficult to walk against it. Have you experienced holding an umbrella on a windy day? Winds can be broadly divided into three categories: permanent or planetary winds, seasonal winds, and local winds. Have a look at the pressure belts on the Earth's surface. There are some permanent winds that blow constantly throughout the year in a particular direction. Can you infer the direction of the winds? The winds blow from high pressure belts to low pressure belts. The trade winds, westerlies and easterlies, are the permanent winds. Some winds change their direction in different seasons. These are known as seasonal winds. Can you give an example for the same? The monsoon wind that blows over India is an example of seasonal wind. The winds blow only during a particular period of the day or year in a small area and are known as local winds. Land and sea breeze on a coastal area is an example of local wind. Can you name any other local wind? Recall the hot and dry local wind that blows in the northern plains of India. This is known as Lu. Let us look at another element of weather, moisture. During rainy days, clothes take longer to dry and sweat from our body does not evaporate easily. Why do you think it is so? During rainy days, the moisture content in the atmosphere is very high and unable to hold some more moisture easily from the wet clothes or from our body. We all know that water evaporates from land and different water bodies. It becomes water vapor. The moisture in the air at any time is known as humidity. When the air is full of water vapor, we call it a humid day. As the air gets warmer, its capacity to hold the water vapor increases, and so it becomes more and more humid, making the environment uncomfortable. Jet planes flying in the sky leave a white trail behind them. How does this white trail occur? The moisture from the engines condenses as the jet planes fly. We see trails of this condensed moisture for some time when there is no air movement to disturb it. The same way, when the water vapor rises, it starts cooling. The water vapor condenses, causing formation of droplets of water. Clouds are just masses of such water droplets. When these droplets of water become too heavy to float in air, then they come down as precipitation. Precipitation that comes down to the earth in liquid form is called rain. Other forms of precipitation are snow, sleet, and hail. On the basis of mechanism, there are three types of rainfall: convectional rainfall, the orographic rainfall, and the cyclonic rainfall. Convectional rainfall occurs when warm air rises up and gets condensed. Orographic rainfall occurs when warm, moist air rises up due to the presence of relief features such as mountains on its way. Cyclonic rain occurs due to the meeting of warm and cold air masses. Rainfall is very important for the survival of plants and animals. It brings fresh water to the earth's surface. Less rainfall may cause water scarcity or drought, and more rainfall may cause flood situation. Plants play an important role in maintaining the level of rainfall. Thus, plants should be protected that help in preserving water.
Now, take a notebook and write it down. In the last session, we wrote 5 questions. Today, we are starting with the 6th question. What is weather? First point, weather is the hour-to-hour, day-to-day condition of the atmosphere. Second point, weather can change dramatically from day to day. Seventh question, define the following. A. Climate. The average weather condition of a place for a longer period of time represents the climate of a place. B. Temperature. The degree of hotness and coldness of the air is known as temperature. C. Insolation. Insolation is the incoming solar energy intercepted by the earth. First. Eighth one, what is air pressure? First point, air pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of air on the earth's surface. Second point, as we go up the layers of the atmosphere, the pressure falls rapidly. Third point, the air pressure is highest at sea level and decreases with height. Ninth question, what is wind? What are the different types of wind? First point, the movement of air from high pressure area to low pressure areas is called wind. Second point, winds can be broadly divided into three types. A. Permanent winds. These blow constantly throughout the year in a particular direction. Example, the trade winds, westerlies and easterlies. B. Seasonal winds. These winds change their direction in different seasons. Example, monsoon winds in India. C. Local wind. These blow only during a particular period of the day or year in a small area. Example, land and sea breeze. 10th question, name three types of rainfall. First point, on the basis of mechanism, there are three types of rainfall. A. Convectional rainfall. B. The orographic rainfall. C. The cyclonic rainfall. Full stop. Now, there is worksheet for you. Two worksheet. A. Solve the crossword puzzle with the help of given clues. That is in your textbook, page number 28. Read the question well and solve the crossword puzzle. B. Make a weather calendar for 1 week. Check the weather for 1 week and mark the weather. In page number 29 itself. You no need to use separate paper for that. In the both work, do it in the textbook itself. Okay. I hope all of you get a clear picture of the lesson A. With this lesson came to an end. All of you read the textbook well, complete the textbook activity, study the notes. Tomorrow, I will conduct the class test note in Google form. I will call you for a Google Meet. All of you prepare well for that. I will ask questions during the meeting. Okay. Thank you, children.